Hello, what's up? I'm just going to very quickly answer a question of someone who I was talking with on the internet named John, and his questions are relating to um, privatization of roads and things like that, and wondering how those things are managed. And a lot of it is just really actually strict business principles that normally actually just apply to general business practice. You may not just be familiar with it because you might not be involved with writing contracts for businesses or doing releases of liability or covenants not to sue or dealing with um, multi-jurisdictional courts or arbitration systems. So I'll just try to sum it all up and try to just explain how private management of roads could potentially work. So on the short, as you already know, roads are largely quote unquote paid for by taxation, and of course, actually, they're also paid for through tolls and things like that. People pay tolls on different roads and special highways. So it's not an unusual concept to think about that you pay for something you use. You do that for anything else you do normally in life. You want to get a T-shirt, you don't think about a community T-shirt. You're like, oh, I go get a shirt. Or if you want to use the internet, well, a company might provide the internet to a lot of people, but you pay for your subscription. Likewise, if someone were to purchase a road, it could be as small as a block. In other words, community ownership of a block as large as, one company or person maybe owns a large sector of a highway section in the southeast, and they could either sell access to it or, sell a type of membership pass or something like that. And a lot of questions people have, they say if you're in a government-less society, how does that work with resolving disputes? Typically, it's done just like a lot of businesses do now. That's through arbitration. If you actually look at most of the agreements and those consumer license agreements that you have on prepackaged software on the internet, it usually says that you agree to arbitration with a certain group or possibly limits your jurisdiction in doing business. And you do this all the time, but you don't think about it. Chances are most people don't. I've seen surveys where Harvard students were surveyed whether they actually read agree to the terms of service, and almost all of them said no, they didn't even read that. So the average person doesn't read what they agree to, and that's their own fault. People need to be privy to their contracts they sign. So what would likely happen is if you're going to use a roadway or something like that privately, you'd probably most likely pay some sort of fee, a monthly use fee or a annual use fee, kind of like a Sun Pass or something like that, or Express Pass. Then in your agreement, likely there would be something there for arbitration disputes. As it is, you might not know this, but most cities and states and government entities have this thing called sovereign immunity. And so in our current system, chances are you're never going to be able to sue the government over something wrong with a general highway. Unless something is like completely out of whack, where it's just downright stupidly dangerous, like the government creates a road and intentionally puts like a 10-foot, empty space in there, and they're like, oh, this is a great thing, and then people die and crash. Maybe then, when it's so grossly, reckless that it's stupid, maybe you might be able to break the sovereign immunity doctrine then, but it's very doubtful. It's always been the case that the government can pretty much say you can't sue them for management of the roads. You're never going to get a successful lawsuit. It's just going to be dismissed. And that's the state of the law as it is. It's kind of ironic. People complain, oh, I'm worried about big business, and I'm worried that they're going to mismanage X, Y, and Z with the roads, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the governments that exist can create the roads and make things, kind of messy, or do construction, or, leave potholes with impunity, generally. The difference is that with businesses, when you have competition, obviously, then it's not only a competition to who makes the best overall deal and contract for those users of the roads, but also leading to other types of technologies. In other words, where roads are seen as more inefficient because of the contractual burdens that they offer, then you have other forms of transportation, trolleys, flight, different types of conveyor belts, trains. You can't limit your imagination and say, oh my gosh, like the roads are going to be monopolized in some sort of cartoonish 1930s, drawing of barons, like, controlling everything and ruining everything. It just doesn't work that way. Everything has to be done through contract, through purchase, through trade, not through force, violence, or threats of violence. And that goes, without saying. I think it's very obvious to most people that threatening violence, using violence is wrong. You shouldn't be threatening to kill somebody or threatening to be at somebody or actually doing those things in order to exert economic influence. And everybody knows that would be assault or battery, or aggravated battery or murder if any of those things happen. So you apply these basic principles to that type of business, and you realize, wait, when you have the costs distributed among a large group of people, then prices come down. It's been the same thing with any sort of technology, computers, cell phones, the TVs. The more consumers you have, the cheaper the price you can mark the margin of profit down to, because in being competitive, you are able to exert a greater amount of leverage in order to get more customers and bring more revenue. And of course, if you break that, and as long as there isn't this tyranny of things called patents, where companies can just take everything off the market even if they don't use it, absent that idea, then you no longer have to worry about a business exerting influence to the point that they force you out of any other alternative. In other words, if there is some sort of monopoly where they just raise the prices, and it costs $1 million to drive on the road, nobody can afford it, blah, blah, which is obviously not going to happen because they want people to actually buy what they own and use what they own, then you just have alternatives rise up that are less expensive. So that's just a short explanation of the economics and how those types of things work when you're dealing with